Many women go through spells of feeling low or worried when they're pregnant or after they've had a baby. But if these feelings don't pass and you're finding it difficult to look after yourself and your baby, you may be suffering from depression or anxiety or both. In this film in the Out of the Blue series, we'll meet 4 mothers who have experienced these conditions. They're sharing their stories to help others recognise and understand how it can feel, and to get the help they need to recover.
You know, I remember sometimes there are weeks that I wouldn't be able to get dressed or get out of the house all week.
I think there were quite a few times where I felt like I could just walk away because I cannot deal with this anymore.
Like many women, these mothers tried to hide their illness. Through their stories, we'll learn why it's important to seek help early. Talking to your midwife or health visitor can be a vital first step towards treatment and recovery.
What I know from treatment, be it from medication or psychological support, is that you can definitely get better and get back to a sense of normality.
Once you've said, I think we've got a problem, you're taking positive action, and so that makes you feel better in itself.
This film will show you where to find help and discover some of the many different forms of support and treatment that can help you recover. Depression is a condition that can affect anyone. More than 1 in 10 women experience it during pregnancy or after their baby is born, yet it can be difficult to recognise. Women experience different symptoms, and they're not always obvious.
So the symptoms of depression can be feeling quite irritable or tearful, excessively tearful, or having a heavy sadness or low mood that lingers and doesn't go away. Sometimes it can be having self-doubt or just not having much confidence or self-belief. Sometimes, in the more extreme instances, it can be having thoughts of self-harm or suicide.
Depression can also have physical symptoms. These might include feeling tired, exhausted, or having trouble sleeping, moving and speaking more slowly than usual, experiencing a change in appetite or weight, losing interest in sex, or having unexplained aches and pains. Some women also experience changes in their behaviour. For instance, outbursts of anger or overprotectiveness, having panic attacks, not getting dressed, or becoming withdrawn. The first 2 mothers we'll meet in this film began to feel low when they were pregnant.
At the time, it felt like everyone else was embracing pregnancy, and I was, thinking this is hard going, and just, feeling emotionally drained as well, and tired all the time, which it makes such a massive difference. There was a time when a friend came round, and I can remember crying, hiding in the cupboard under the stairs.
Some women also experience anxiety. Though some worries and concerns are normal when you're pregnant or a new mum, if feelings of anxiety are more constant or interfere with your daily life, it can be a sign of something more serious.
I felt very anxious about everything, trying to control everything that was going on. And towards the end of pregnancy, I became quite obsessive about things. And writing lots of lists, which now in hindsight should have been a sign for me that actually something's not okay.
With depression and anxiety, it might be that a woman's feeling quite low in her mood, very tearful, but at the same time having a lot of anxieties around her health, the health of her baby, or how she's going to be able to cope. So you find that the 2 can oftentimes go hand in hand.
Many women don't recognise the signs that something isn't right straight away. But if you're feeling low or anxious, it's important to talk to your midwife or doctor so that you can get the right care and support.
The critical thing is if you're worried about your mental health in pregnancy, then it's really important that you seek help and that you don't just hide it or mask it or hope it goes away. And we're lucky in this country because we've got a great maternity service. So the first port of call from professionals should be a midwife. So you should be able to just tell your midwife that things aren't quite right, you don't feel normal or your mood isn't quite right. There's plenty of help out there, and the help is there depending on the type of help that a mum wants. It's not medication necessarily that's the answer. It might be psychological help or seeing a counsellor or a psychologist. So that the help will be geared towards what the mum wants.
For some women, the arrival of their baby brings emotional challenges.
I had times, when, like any newborn, she would just cry, and I'd feed her and she'd still cry, and I'd have these times when she doesn't like me, she doesn't want me, she'd be better off without me. And then that was really hard because I think, because she needs me, because I'm the one who feeds her, and obviously she needs me, and that's ridiculous. And then I'd have this really difficult thing going on inside me where I didn't really know what was best.
It's quite normal to feel tearful or irritable or experience changes in mood after a baby is born, symptoms often called baby blues.
So with baby blues, it's very transient, very short-lived, and usually women can experience symptoms of baby blues around the time when their baby's 3 days old to 5 days old. And the symptoms can be irritability or tearfulness or feeling extremely elated. But what we know about baby blues is it's very short-lived. So by the time a lady gets to 10 days postnatal, we wouldn't expect that she's still experiencing these symptoms. If she is, it's likely it could be developing into postnatal depression.
There's no set time when postnatal depression occurs. It can develop within the first 6 weeks after your baby is born, but may not become apparent until later, sometimes after many months. For Laura, weaning her babies at around 6 months was a trigger for negative feelings.
I was putting this pressure on myself to give them home-cooked meals and pureed apples, and I wouldn't have just opened a jar. Oh my goodness, that would have been like putting poison in their mouth. Just look back at the standards I set for myself. It was so high. So much pressure on myself and so little time to do it, and it just felt relentless. Every time they cried, I thought, oh God, they're gonna be mentally disturbed by this. I felt like I'd failed them, which is silly to say it out loud, but that's how it felt.
But at whatever stage depression develops, many mothers find it difficult to acknowledge and become overwhelmed by it.
I was crying a lot. I was just in complete denial, thinking, just completely ignoring myself in the whole situation.
It's so sort of drummed into us and drummed into society that it's such a beautiful time of your life, pregnancy and having a baby. It felt so out of the concept of what was real to think that I could possibly be depressed or not enjoy that experience. So it was, a very kind of strange time.
If you're experiencing feelings of depression or anxiety, it's important to talk to your midwife, health visitor or doctor. It can help stop a small problem turning into a bigger one.
The moment you think something's not quite right, you're the best judge of who you are and how you feel. Seek help early. Don't sit on something for several weeks or months even, which people often do. It's much better to share how you're feeling with whoever it is, a health visitor, GP, and let them help you, whether it's something a bit more serious. Because the earlier you can seek help, the more quickly you can have support and interventions. And the interventions are based on what the individual wants, and they'll never be forced on someone.
Without support, or in some cases medical attention and treatment, problems can escalate and can put mothers at risk of harming themselves.
I just broke down and just said, I can't do this. This is just, too much. And I just felt like that, I either had to run away or kill myself. I remember sort of, being in the kitchen and just holding a knife and just thinking, oh God, what am I going to do? And I just really wanted to do something. But then there was something in me that stopped me.
For partners, family and friends, recognising when things aren't right and knowing what to do can be a challenge.
So it's really important for your friends and your family around you also to understand how you're feeling. It may be fairly obvious to them that you're not yourself, but they have no idea why or what you're going through. And they may want to support you, but dare not say that they think you're not right. So being open and trying not to be ashamed, because there is nothing to be ashamed about. If you had a broken leg, you'd be quite open and talking about it quite easily. But with depression, people often feel frightened or ashamed to talk about it.
Paul has been incredibly helpful practically, but he also wanted to fix things and wanted to give an answer and make things better. But I just didn't know what I needed, and it would just kind of become a bit of an argument, really.
I was getting frustrated by saying, what more can I do, and trying to fix it, but it doesn't need to be fixed. It just needs to be understood that you can only do so much. And there was one point where me and Rachel were just chatting, and it was after an argument, and I just said, come here, give me a hug. And we just sat there holding each other for I don't know how long. And afterwards, me and Rachel were chatting, and she said that was probably the most important thing that I'd done for quite a long time, because it wasn't fixing the problem, it was understanding the problem.
If you're suffering from depression or anxiety, asking for help from a health professional can feel like the last thing you want to do. But the condition is unlikely to get better quickly by itself, and it could affect your baby's health as well as your own.
I think it's a really hard thing to actually just go along and say, I'm not coping. And it was a hard thing for me to even acknowledge myself and for me to recognise myself. So to go up to a complete stranger and say, hey, I need some help is a really hard thing to do.
I then had anxieties around, well, if I tell them I'm not coping, they'll take me into hospital and they'll take the baby away. And even though I'd even had conversations with my health visitor about this, and she'd said categorically, we don't do that. You know, we'd never take your baby off you for you being depressed. I couldn't get hold of that.
Our ethos of care is to make sure that women and babies remain together, and what we want is a healthy mum, because a healthy mum means a healthy baby.
I think the problem with not getting help is that you actually just get worse. You hope that you'll get better, but you don't. And because you're not acknowledging it, that adds to the problem as well. I think with anything, once you've said, I think we've got a problem, you're taking positive action, and so that makes you feel better in itself.
There are different approaches to dealing with mental health issues like depression and anxiety. They include self-help, techniques that you can try yourself, talking therapies, which might be one-to-one with a counsellor or within a group, and medication. You may find that one of these, or a combination of techniques, is right for you. Your midwife, health visitor or doctor will be able to suggest sources of support that are available in your area. For some women, going to a self-help support group can make a big difference. Rachel attended a local group called Bluebell, where mothers could share experiences and support each other.
That was what Bluebell was really good at. giving mums the time for themselves to talk and think about themselves, and also just to do some nice things. And remember that you can do nice things for yourself, and you can have fun, and you are allowed to laugh. Being with other mums who have felt that same level of just complete desperation, isolation, and having the facilitators who've been through that themselves, they just totally get you and totally understand, and that is what you need when you're feeling insecure and scared.
If you find the thought of attending a group challenging, the internet can sometimes be a good initial way to find other mothers who can share experiences. Emma found it a good place to start, even though it couldn't resolve everything.
The internet's great because initially, if you're not feeling very well, you're completely anonymous. Being able to go online and talk to people who get it really helps, because actually if somebody's saying, you know what, that's completely normal. But it can only ever be a part of your treatment, really, because people on the internet don't know you personally and they only hear what you reveal. But I think it's a great resource for people, especially, you know, if you're looking at antenatal and postnatal depression, because admitting that something's not right is that first step.
It's important to remember, though, that not all the information you might find on the web is reliable, and internet forums aren't a substitute for getting professional help if you need it. For some women, counselling or talking therapies can support them towards recovery. One widely used technique that can be extremely effective is cognitive behavioural therapy, or CBT. It works to break down unhelpful patterns of thinking and behaviour and establish more positive ones.
Oftentimes, when someone is experiencing mental health issues, you find that there's a vicious circle that forms around the thoughts, the feelings and the behaviours and the physical symptoms. So what CBT tries to do is to break these symptoms down into bite-sized chunks and helps the person to be able to deal with their thoughts, which will have an impact on their feelings and their behaviours and the physical symptoms.
If you'd like to try CBT, the first step is to speak with your GP, who can refer you to a local therapist. Your therapist will want to meet with you regularly and will help you to break down your problems into thoughts, feelings and actions in order to work out how to change unhelpful thoughts and behaviours and replace them with more positive ones. With the techniques you learn in therapy, you'll be able to practice making changes in your daily life and learn how to manage your problems even after you finish your treatment. Selena combines CBT with a technique called mindfulness, which involves focusing on the present moment, your thoughts, feelings and the world around you.
But it's a lion. Mindfulness-based cognitive therapy is taking mindfulness tools and practices and combining it with cognitive behavioural therapy. So it's really sort of looking at the practical tools that one can take away and implement into everyday life.
For some women, medication is a necessary and helpful part of their recovery from depression. It's not unusual to feel apprehensive about starting a course of medication.
I wouldn't have taken medication lightly. I would have been worried about getting dependent on it. How do you come off it? And is it going to change me? Is it going to flatten the happy moments as well as the sad moments? And yeah, I wouldn't have done it lightly, but I knew that it's got to be better than these moments where I'm just not functioning at all. It took a couple of weeks for it to settle down. I can remember having funny side effects where I felt like my head was kind of buzzing, but that was just the settling in, really. I started on a very low dose. I think it was after about 2 weeks I started to feel quite good.
Antidepressants are really effective for the slightly more severe type of antidepressants, and we know from the research that they're effective in speeding up recovery from depression and helping people to get completely better from depression. So if you've been recommended to take an antidepressant, that certainly is going to be helpful for you. The biggest concern that women have in pregnancy and in breastfeeding is that antidepressants might affect the baby. And at present, we have little or no evidence for the majority of antidepressants of any effect on the baby at all. And this is something that you need to talk through with your doctor so that you can understand the information available and make a decision that's right for you about what you want to do.
I ummed and ahed about it for a while, mainly because I was still breastfeeding Oliver, and I just didn't want to take antidepressants while I was breastfeeding. So I did some of my own research, plucked up the courage to go to the GP, and then was just really relieved that she said, oh yeah, that's fine, and then prescribed the antidepressant that I had in my mind. This is my first choice, this is the one that I would choose. So probably within the first week, I felt a real relief, like a weight had just been lifted off my shoulders. Over the weeks, then I just thought, oh, do you know what? I can concentrate a bit more now.
Working closely with their doctors, over time both Laura and Rachel were gradually able to reduce the amount of medication they were taking. All 4 of the mothers we followed have found the way to recovery from their depression with the right support. They've also realised that their mental health is something they need to look after in the longer term.
I still have, bad days, particularly I can correlate it to the sleep. And so when Zafy has had a bad night, or bad few nights, then I will inevitably have a bad time. But I'm better at recognising that and respecting that. So when I do feel that way, I just look after myself more and just sort of, let myself feel that way and try not to make myself feel guilty.
You can find out about the symptoms and treatments for some other mental health conditions that can affect mothers in pregnancy and after birth in the other films in the Out of the Blue series. You can find more information, support and telephone numbers for helplines you can call on the websites listed on your screen now.